My name is Marlene Anders, 38 years old from Bismarck, North Dakota. He said his parents were dead, he said his name was Declan, he said he loved me, but one phone call unraveled it all, and what I uncovered next turned my marriage into a ticking time bomb. This is the story of how I fell in love with a lie and fought like hell to escape it. Before we dive into this chilling true-to-life story of deception and betrayal, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss another suspense-filled narration. Welcome back to the story. I met Declan Anders on a Tuesday. That's the part one remember best, not the weather, not what I was wearing, just that it was a Tuesday. The lobby of Westbridge Insurance was packed, and he was standing by the front desk, dressed too nicely for a client, holding a black leather portfolio like it belonged to him. Turns out, it did. He was the new risk consultant, freshly transferred from Minneapolis. He smiled when our eyes met. Not a casual, passing smile. The kind that made it feel like the two of us were in on some shared secret. Declan was the kind of man who could make still water ripple. Tall, clean-cut, and confident without being arrogant. He had this calm intensity, like he was always thinking 3 steps ahead but didn't need to prove it to anyone. We struck up a conversation in the break room later that week. Then coffee the next day, then dinner. By the end of the month, I'd memorized the way he took his eggs and the exact sound of his laugh when he was trying not to sound nervous. It happened fast. Too fast, looking back. But that's how predators work. They move like charm, speak like safety, and disappear into your blind spots before you ever realize they're a threat. At the time, I didn't think of it that way. I thought I was finally lucky. I'd been single for years, careful with my heart after a childhood full of broken promises and a mother who'd taught me that love came with a leash and a price tag, but Declan felt different. He listened when I spoke. Remembered little things. He'd bring me coffee on rainy mornings and warm up my car when the snow hit early. He was thoughtful in the exact ways I'd always dreamed of and never expected to find. When he asked about my family, I told him the truth, distant, complicated, not worth the drama. He nodded like he understood. Then said his parents had died in a car crash 5 years ago, no siblings, no ties. It was perfect. Too perfect. 6 months in, we were married at the courthouse with only 2 friends as witnesses. No big celebration, just champagne and a small dinner afterward. He moved into my condo in downtown Bismarck, started cooking most nights, took over laundry duty without being asked. He even got along with my coworkers, charming them the same way he charmed me. I thought I knew him. I thought I'd finally found someone who wasn't running from something, but I didn't know Declan at all. I knew the version he created for me, the mask, the story, the illusion, and by the time I started peeling it back, it was already too late, because the man I married wasn't real. Declan's birthday landed on a Wednesday that year. Quiet. Low-key. Just how he liked it, or so he said. He insisted we keep it small, no party. No fuss, just the 2 of us at home, some grilled salmon, and the chocolate mousse cake from his favorite downtown cafe. Birthdays are just another day, he told me with a shrug, kissing the top of my head. Nothing to celebrate. That struck me as odd. Most people who've lost family, especially both parents, tend to cling to birthdays. To memory. To anything that connects them to what's gone. But Declan brushed it off. Not a big deal, he said again. I baked the cake anyway. He stepped into the shower after dinner, and I cleared the dishes, still humming the tune of the birthday song I'd half sung to fill the silence. That's when his phone buzzed. It was face up on the counter next to the sink. I glanced without meaning to. The screen lit up. Incoming call. Dad. Everything in me froze. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My hand hovered over the phone like it was something burning. My brain raced through every possibility. Maybe he never changed the contact. Maybe it was an old friend using a shared phone. Maybe it was nothing, but the nothing scratched at the back of my mind like claws on glass. When he came out, damp hair, fresh t-shirt, towel slung around his neck, I tried to act normal. Your phone rang, I said casually. Said Dad. He stopped drying his hair. His expression didn't change, but I saw it, just for a second. A flicker of something. Like fear caught off guard, he glanced at the phone and laughed, too quickly. Spam call. I get those sometimes. Probably spoofed the contact name. He picked it up and locked the screen with a casual swipe. Why would a spam call say dad? He shrugged. No clue. Tech's weird like that. Then, changing the subject, did you save me any cake? I forced a smile. Of course. But my hands were shaking when I cut the slice. We didn't talk about it again. He went back to watching some comedy on TV. I sat next to him, smiling, nodding, laughing when I was supposed to. But inside, something had cracked open. A fissure, small but undeniable. I started running through our conversations in my mind. How he'd always redirected when I asked about his parents. How he never showed me old photos. How he didn't even have a family album, just a single framed picture of him alone, fishing, dated with the wrong year. Maybe it was a spoofed call. Maybe I was just being paranoid, but deep down, something told me this wasn't the first lie Declan had told me. It was just the first one I saw. I wasn't snooping. I had no reason to, at least that's what I told myself. Declan had gone out to run errands, and I needed the warranty info for the new washer. I remembered him tucking it into the bottom drawer of our filing cabinet, the one labeled appliances. I flipped through the folders, electric bills, tax documents, service invoices, until something at the back caught my eye. A navy blue folder, unmarked. Tucked behind everything else, like it had slipped there by accident. I wouldn't have touched it if it hadn't been hidden, but it was hidden, and that gnawed at me more than curiosity. It felt intentional. I opened it slowly. The first thing I saw was an ID, Minnesota license, same face, different name. Ethan Caldwell. My stomach dropped. Beneath it were two more IDs, one from Illinois, the other Wisconsin. All Declan's face. All different names. Brandon Reese. Tyler Markham. Then came the birth certificate. Real, not a copy. Issued in Fargo, North Dakota. The name, Ethan Caldwell. Parents listed. Alive. I felt dizzy. Cold, despite the warm late afternoon sun glowing through the blinds. Declan, or Ethan, had told me his parents died in a car accident. That he had no family. That he wanted a fresh start, but here was proof, they were alive. And he'd had at least 3 separate identities. Not nicknames, not aliases for safety, legal IDs. I flipped further. There were medical documents, prescriptions for antipsychotics, hospitalization records, a summary from a facility in Duluth labeled involuntary hold. The diagnosis field had been blacked out, but not well. I tilted it under the light, delusional disorder. Aggressive tendencies. Then came the court document. A restraining order. Filed by a woman in Eau Claire. I couldn't breathe. Every piece of paper in that folder screamed one thing: this man is not who he says he is, and he's dangerous. I stuffed everything back inside, careful to put it exactly where I found it. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped the folder. The front door creaked open just as I closed the drawer. Declan's voice floated in. Hey, babe. You home? I plastered on a smile, stepping out of the office like nothing had happened. Hey. How'd it go? He kissed my cheek. Long line at the post office. But I grabbed wine for dinner. I nodded, but my heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. That night, I lay next to him in bed, pretending to sleep while he scrolled through his phone beside me. He hummed softly, like everything was normal, but it wasn't, and I didn't know who the man beside me really was, only that his name wasn't Declan, and if he was lying about that, I had to wonder, what else had he lied about, and what would happen when he found out I knew. I didn't sleep after finding the folder. I laid in the dark with the weight of the truth pressing down on my chest, my body beside a man whose name wasn't even real. When the sun finally cracked over the horizon, I slipped out of bed, packed a bag, and drove. Fargo was only an hour away, but the drive felt longer. I gripped the wheel like it could steady my thoughts. My pulse buzzed in my ears the whole way. The address on the birth certificate led me to a modest house in an aging neighborhood, white paint faded by years of wind and snow, plastic sunflowers in the yard. The mailbox read, Caldwell. I sat in my car for a long moment, staring, then I got out and knocked. The woman who answered looked older than I expected, with tired eyes and hair swept into a frizzy bun. But the resemblance was unmistakable, Declan's, or rather, Ethan's, jawline, his eyes. She froze when she saw me. Can I help you? I think. I'm married to your son, I said. Her hand gripped the doorframe. Ethan? I nodded. He goes by Declan now. She opened the door wider without a word and led me to the living room. The air inside was heavy with silence and dust. A photo hung crooked above the fireplace, two boys smiling stiffly in matching sweaters. One was Ethan. I'm Karen, she said quietly. It's been almost 10 years. She didn't ask questions, just told me everything. As if she'd been waiting, Ethan had always been unstable. Brilliant in school, but withdrawn. Then came the anger, bursts of violence that no amount of therapy seemed to reach. At 16, he attacked his younger brother over a stolen video game. Hospitalized him. The police got involved. He was sent to a facility in Duluth after a judge ruled he was a danger to others. He didn't come back the same. Or maybe he never really changed. He's been reinventing himself for years, Karen said, eyes glassy. Different towns. Different names. When he called last, 6 years ago, it was to say we were dead to him. He told me you were dead, I said. She nodded sadly. That sounds like him. I pulled the folder from my bag and showed her the documents. She skimmed them with trembling fingers. There were others, weren't there? I asked. She looked at me, tears in her eyes. Yes. Do you know where they are? She shook her head. He doesn't leave footprints. Only ashes. When I stood to leave, she touched my arm gently. You need to get away from him. Before he disappears again. Or before he breaks something you can't fix. I drove home in silence, her words looping in my head, only ashes. That night, I didn't sleep beside him. I stayed in the guest room with the door locked, one hand on my phone, the other under the pillow, resting on the folder, because I knew something now. I wasn't sleeping beside a liar, I was sleeping beside a ghost. By the time I got home from Fargo, Declan was already in the kitchen, sautéing garlic and onions like it was just another evening in our picture-perfect life. He smiled when he saw me. That smile, that polished, practiced smile, looked different now. Too wide. Too effortless. Like it had been cut from paper and glued onto his face. Hey, stranger, he said, wiping his hands on a towel. Long day? Yeah, I said, setting my bag down. Had to meet a client last minute. Sorry I didn't text. He shrugged. No big deal. I figured work was being work. I nodded and forced a small laugh. You know how it is. I don't remember what he made for dinner. I just remember the way he watched me. Closely. Carefully. Like he was trying to read whether I knew. And I, like any woman raised in a house full of secrets, pretended I didn't. I complimented the food. I asked about his day. I kissed him goodnight, and I locked the door to the guest room after he fell asleep, but the mask was slipping. I could feel it in the way he asked follow-up questions he never used to ask. Where did you say you went again? Who was the client? Anyone I know? He'd never cared before. Not like this. That weekend, he suggested a trip. Just the two of us. Get away from the noise, he said. Clear our heads. My blood went cold. I said I couldn't, too much going on at work. He nodded, but his jaw twitched. Just once. Barely noticeable. Later that night, I saw him staring out the window, jaw clenched, eyes vacant. When I asked what was wrong, he smiled again. Nothing, he said. Just tired. Smiles like lies. I started noticing little things. My desk drawers weren't quite how I'd left them. My email had a login alert from a different device. One of my old journals, stuffed in a box under the bed, was lying open in the guest room closet. He was watching me. And I was watching him right back. Each morning, I smiled a little wider. Played the part a little harder. Because I knew now, I couldn't confront him. Not yet. Not without a plan. Declan wasn't just lying to me. He'd been lying to everyone. For years. With different names. Different lives. I was just the latest in a long list of women who thought they were marrying a man, but I wasn't going to vanish like the others. That night, while he was in the shower, I opened my laptop and searched, Private Investigator, North Dakota, Identity Fraud Legal Support, Restraining Order Process. I didn't know exactly what I was building, but I knew it had to start now, because Declan, Ethan, whatever his name really was, had shown me who he was, and now I was going to show him who I was, too. The first thing I did was call Jenna. She wasn't just my cousin, she was a detective with the Bismarck PD, and she'd known me since I was 5, stubborn and sneaking cookies from the pantry. I trusted her more than anyone. I didn't tell her everything at once. Just enough to get her attention. His name isn't real. I found IDs. At least 3. And there's a restraining order in another state. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Come in tomorrow, she said. And bring everything. I did. I brought the folder, copies, not originals, and told her everything I'd learned since Fargo. She didn't flinch. Just took notes, asked questions, and then told me the truth I already suspected. This isn't just identity fraud, Marlene, she said. It's a pattern. He's done this before. You're not the first. The words made my stomach churn. Jenna looped in a cyber expert she trusted, Mason, a quiet guy with wire-rimmed glasses and a mind like a scalpel. I handed over Declan's laptop, which I'd borrowed while he was asleep. Mason cracked it in less than an hour. What he found made my blood run cold. Multiple email accounts. Dozens of login credentials. Encrypted folders containing financial spreadsheets, some with my name, others with names I didn't recognize. 3 of them were women. One had a note attached, settled 2017, disappeared. Mason looked up at me. You need to be careful. He's not just draining bank accounts. He's covering his tracks. The fraud was clear. He'd already opened 2 credit cards in my name, one maxed out, the other half used. There were attempts to transfer funds from my savings into a private account he'd created under an alias, Tyler Markham. Declan wasn't just playing house. He was preparing his exit, and if I hadn't found the folder, if I hadn't locked down my finances when I did, I might have woken up one day with nothing but a wedding ring and an empty bank account. My lawyer, Gloria, took it from there. She filed a motion to freeze any joint accounts, secured my assets, and began drafting a restraining order, though we both knew I couldn't file it until I had a clean break. Get him on record, she said. Video, audio, anything. And don't let him know you're onto him. Not yet. I nodded, my pulse pounding. What if he catches on? She looked at me, steady and firm. Then you leave. You run. But I wasn't ready to run. I'd spent too long being lied to. Too long letting this man crawl through the cracks in my life like smoke. Now I had names, dates, proof. I had people, I had power, and for the first time since he walked into my world, I had something Declan never expected, a plan. Declan always watched me closely, especially lately. So when I told him I had to drive to Minot for a client conference, he smiled a little too easily. That's good, he said. Get some air. Clear your head. He kissed my forehead like I was already gone. I packed a suitcase, tossed in enough clothes to sell the illusion, and left before sunrise. But I didn't go to Minot. I went 3 blocks away, to Jenna's. From the spare bedroom in her apartment, I watched my own house through a private livestream. Mason had set up the cameras 2 nights before, tiny, discreet, hidden in vents, light fixtures, even the frame of the hall mirror. Declan would never see them. He thought he was alone. He wasn't. The first few hours, he paced. Checked the front windows. Opened the fridge and stood there for too long. By mid-afternoon, he got bolder. He went into the office and pulled out the drawer where I'd kept our financial documents. I'd replaced the originals with blanks, but he didn't seem to care. He had his own folder, thicker, more worn. He began typing furiously at my laptop. Mason leaned over my shoulder and whispered, "He's logging into your retirement account." I didn't speak. Just kept watching, fists clenched. Next, he moved to my phone. I'd left it behind on purpose. He knew my passcode. Of course he did. He opened the banking app. We'd set it up together when we got married, joint visibility. Linked alerts. Now I watched as he transferred $3,000 from my personal account into an account under the name Brandon Reese, one of his aliases. Then he deleted the app, and smiled. That smile again, sharp, smug, practiced. He moved to the hall closet next. Pulled out the duffel bag we used on road trips and began packing. Fast. Efficient. Like this wasn't the first time he'd done it. Cash. Documents. A burner phone. He was preparing to vanish. Mason clicked the screen. "I'm recording all of this." "Good," I said. "Make backups." "Everywhere." By nightfall, he was sitting on the couch, beer in hand, watching a movie like nothing happened. Jenna leaned in. "He's waiting until morning. Probably thinks the money will hit overnight. He'll be gone before breakfast." My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. "Then we stop him before he reaches the door." I could feel the danger now, close and suffocating. But also a strange, bitter relief. This was no longer about questions. Or suspicions. Or even fear. It was about facts. I had him, on camera. On record. Caught in the act. Declan had been playing a long, careful game, but he'd made one fatal mistake. He thought I was still the woman he married. He didn't realize I'd stopped loving him the moment I learned his real name, and now, I wasn't his wife, I was his reckoning. I returned home just after dawn. Declan was in the kitchen, shirtless, flipping pancakes like he hadn't packed a go-bag 12 hours ago. Like he hadn't drained my accounts or forged a new identity while I slept in another city. He turned and smiled. "How was mine it?" I dropped my keys on the counter. "Productive." "Good." He slid a plate toward me. "You hungry?" I didn't touch it. Instead, I opened the drawer behind me and pulled out a flash drive. I laid it between us. He stared at it, then up at me. "What's that?" "Insurance," I said. His face twitched. "Barely, Declan," I said quietly. Or should I say Ethan? Brandon? Tyler? Take your pick. I've got them all now. Silence fell like glass shattering. He blinked. Once. Twice. "I don't know what you think don't," I said, my voice low and shaking. "Don't lie to me." "Not anymore." I slid a folder across the counter, copies of the IDs, the transfer logs, screenshots of him draining my accounts, photos from the hidden cameras. Every piece of his betrayal laid out in full color. His smile wavered. Then vanished. "So what?" he said finally. "You think you're going to stop me?" "I already have." That's when Jenna stepped into the kitchen, badge on her belt. "Calm. Professional, Declan Anders," she said, "or any of your known aliases. You're under arrest for identity fraud, theft, and pending investigation related to a missing persons case in Nebraska. Please place your hands where I can see them." His eyes darted toward the back door. Jenna raised her voice. "Don't even think about it." I expected him to yell. To lunge. To do something. Instead, he just looked at me, cold and calculating. "You really think this changes anything?" he said. "You were just like the others. Lonely. Needy. Easy." I stepped forward, fire boiling in my throat. "No," I said. "I was kind. And trusting. And stupid. But I'm not anymore." He smirked. "You think this makes you strong?" "No," I said. "But it makes me free." Jenna cuffed him, read him his rights, and led him out the door without another word. I watched from the porch as the squad car pulled away, red and blue lights fading into the early morning haze. The house was quiet again, But it wasn't the same. I wasn't the same. I sat at the kitchen table with the untouched plate of pancakes growing cold in front of me. The flash drive sat beside it, still warm from my grip. Everything hurt, but in a clean, sharp way. Like stitches after a deep cut, he'd lied about who he was. He tried to rewrite my life, but I finally took the pen back, and this time I was the one writing the ending. The house was too quiet without him. Not peaceful, just empty. His boots were gone from the mat by the door. His coffee mug no longer sat in the sink, half full. And yet, his presence still lingered. In the way the couch cushions held his shape. In the drawer handles I hesitated to touch. Declan, Ethan, was gone, but he had left fingerprints on everything. The news hit within 48 hours. Man arrested in Bismarck faces multiple charges of fraud and identity theft, the headlines read. But that was only the beginning. As the story spread, other women came forward, 3 in total, from 3 different states. All with similar stories. All with broken bank accounts and fractured hearts. I gave my statement. Handed over the evidence. Sat in a sterile room with lawyers and detectives and told them every detail I could remember. Every lie he'd told. Every strange moment I'd brushed aside. It wasn't just about what he did to me anymore. It was about the women before me. The ones who didn't get the chance to fight back. The state pressed charges. Federal fraud, financial identity theft, and 2 counts of coercive control. There would be a trial. Maybe even prison time. But I didn't care about the outcome, I just wanted out, so I sold the condo. I boxed up everything that held a trace of him and left it on the curb. The wedding photos, the dish set we'd picked together, the blanket he'd wrapped around me that first snowy night, gone. Burned or donated. Nothing followed me. I rented a small walk-up above a bookstore downtown. It was old and drafty, but the floors creaked in a comforting way. I painted the walls a color I loved and hung up art I'd collected over the years but never had the courage to display. It finally felt like my space. Jenna stopped by often, always checking in with quiet eyes and firm hugs. You did the hard part, she told me one night, sipping coffee on my new balcony. You looked him in the eye and ended it. But it didn't feel like an ending, it felt like a rewrite. I started walking again in the mornings. Picked up yoga at the studio 3 blocks away. Enrolled in a night course for cybersecurity, because I wanted to learn how to protect myself, not just depend on others. Sometimes, I still woke up reaching for a man who never existed. Sometimes I wondered if I'd ever fully trust again, but most days, I felt lighter, like I'd cut loose an anchor I didn't know I'd been dragging. Declan stole my peace. My money. Nearly my identity, but he didn't steal me, and every step I took forward reminded me that I wasn't the woman he thought he married. I was stronger. Smarter. Free, and this time, I was writing the future, one chapter at a time. If you found this story gripping, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another tale of truth, betrayal, and revenge. Have you ever uncovered a secret that changed everything? Share your story in the comments, I'm listening.